kind of job punishes you with mutilation if you mess up, and then dumps your body in an unmarked pit if you die doing it. Because that's what life was for an archer in ancient Egypt. Get ready to step into a world of broken bones, starvation marches, and battlefield carnage so brutal, ancient kings bragged about flooding valleys with intestines. Now, let's start at the beginning. The part where boys were turned into weapons. You see, from the moment a boy became an archer in ancient Egypt, the drills were unforgiving. We see it in Sahur's 5th dynasty pyramid reliefs, soldiers pulling bows, wrestling each other, and swinging sticks in tatib practice. That trio, archery, wrestling, and stick fighting, it formed the backbone of military life. Archery drills weren't gentle. Imagine spending hours lifting a heavy bow, firing arrow after arrow, all under a boiling sun. And remember, there were no cushy safety nets or regulation ranges back then. And these archers didn't just shoot from the ground. Foot, prow, then chariot. And with each step up, the danger multiplied. Rough skin, bleeding wrists, bleeding shoulders, all there. Surviving a trial this brutal meant you were cut out for the king's service. Literally. Archaeological inscriptions even list archers among royal attendants, and those were the tough ones. And if you fall behind or pause for a sip of water, then you risked a lot more than a reprimand. Legend has it, under Horemheb in 1300 BC, failing soldiers might lose their nose as well. And if you steal hides, you'd get 100 lashes. And if you try to desert or shoot an officer, then, well, that was likely a one-way ticket, which wasn't exactly motivating, because weakness wasn't tolerated. The goal was efficient precision. But this cruel training was just the warm-up. Now they had to carry the tools of death. You see, every archer dragged a serious load into battle. And no, not metaphorically. We're talking real weight. Archaeological finds, especially from Tutankhamun's tomb, show that a pharaoh's personal armory was stacked with dozens of bows, piles of arrows, and protective gear all crammed in. Now, your average Egyptian archer didn't have quite that royal arsenal, but even a regular foot soldier came equipped, and their main weapon was the bow. Sometimes a simple self-bow carved from a single piece of wood. But after Egypt's run-ins with the Hyksos, things got a bit fancier. The composite bow enters the scene, and it was made of wood, horn, and sinew, all laminated together like some ancient high-performance technology. And these weren't just for show. Composite bows had serious punch. In fact, experiments and a few dramatic wall carvings suggest they could shoot arrows straight through multiple shields. One clean hit, and the guy behind the first shield wasn't feeling great either. But of course, firing one of these monsters wasn't gentle. Every shot sent the bowstring whipping back toward the archer's arm with enough force to leave a mark, or several marks. So they wore braces, leather guards strapped to the inside of the forearm. And yes, some have actually turned up in tomb excavations, including digs run by the Met Museum, which feels weirdly intimate, like opening someone's drawer and finding their old gym gear. Anyway, along with the bow and the bracer, an archer carried a quiver holding 20 to 30 arrows. It could be strapped to the back or the hip, depending on what the fashion or military protocol called for that year. Reliefs often show archers holding several arrows in one hand while drawing another. It wasn't great for health and safety, but it was efficient. And as for the arrows themselves, these things were nasty. They were made from flint, bone, or bronze tips, and they were often barbed. They were built to tear. And what were these deadly marksmen wearing? Not much, honestly. Simple clothing, like a short kilt with minimal gear, sometimes just a tunic and sandals. Late-period murals even poke fun at how little conscripted foot soldiers had, basically the ancient version of bring your own pants. After all, armor was not a standard issue, and there were no mass-produced helmets or body armor for footmen either. At best, you got a small hide shield to block with, maybe a padded linen cap, and if you were lucky or cautious, a triangular cloth groin cover, like an ancient athletic cup. But here's the thing, every extra pound slowed you down. So, you picked your battles and your gear. Still, by the time an archer had their bow, bracer, belt, spare arrows and shield strapped on, under the full blast of the desert sun, it added up. We're talking tens of kilograms, easy. And all of it designed to kill, or keep you alive just long enough to kill again. And just when they were fully loaded, physically and mentally, the real suffering began. You see, most archers weren't top-tier specialists. They were conscripts, drafted conscripts. They weren't hand-picked. In the New Kingdom, pharaohs could conscript 1 in 10 able-bodied men from each district to bulk up the army. And these guys often ended up in the bottom ranks, survey says. Poor gear, poor pay. And when the campaign began, a foot archer became part lugger, part baggage hauler, and part fighter. Forced marches crushed people. Egyptian records and modern historians note they often marched many days before reaching the enemy, carrying everything themselves. So picture this, days of trudging through desert or scrubland under the baking sun. Your feet blistering in basic sandals. Your rations might include bread and beer, and on campaign, even that ran out fast. Some men only ate what he could carry, usually a hard, crumbly emmer loaf and a skin of sour beer. Sometimes they got lucky, dried fish or lentils. Back in the Middle Kingdom, rations were so meager that soldiers got quarry tokens guaranteeing just 10 days of bread. So, imagine yourself sipping salty oasis water and chewing on some old hard bread as flies buzz around your face with the sun beating down on you. Sunstroke could hit at any time. Then there was the issue of sleeping on the ground. After all, camps were bare bones. And you most likely didn't have any blankets. Desert nights could easily freeze you. But then by day, the temperature rose to around 50 degrees Celsius, and disease was quite common in armies. We're talking dysentery, fever, snake bites. Some of these things could kill you as fast as an enemy arrow. And when it came to military campaigns, hygiene was almost non-existent. Aside from no hospital tents, clothes were often infested with lice and fleas. So, wounded archers might lie in agony for days until the army moved on. And when the army did finally reach the enemy, it was a whole different thing. That's when the real killing began. You see, when archers finally faced the enemy, carnage exploded in waves of arrows. Those arrows could easily find your flesh and then tear into it. And soon enough, bodies would stack up like trophies. Egyptian kings bragged, quite graphically, about innards or intestines flooding the valley. Brutal. This one time, archaeologists discovered a mass grave at Luxor. It held 59 New Kingdom soldiers who were all linen-wrapped and cut down in one hellish moment. Their bones even carried arrowheads or blade pieces. One poor soldier, now in a museum, still has an arrow shaft lodged in his shoulder. What a silent freeze frame of instant death. Now, as for wounds, they varied wildly. Some arrows crushed bones, while others buried themselves to rot inside you. And then you had spears and trampling horses adding to the mayhem, which often led to even more chaos and carnage. As a modern analyst dryly puts it, mummified bodies still show cuts, broken bones, and even burnt cloth. Archaeologists once unearthed barbed arrowheads embedded in Bronze Age bone. Now, on Egyptian fields, amputations were nearly unheard of. Most guys either bled out or died later of infection. But as for survivors, many soldiers were maimed. Field medicine was basic. Doctors might pull out arrowheads or give the wound a basic clean, but there were no antiseptics or advanced surgery back then. So, a lot of wounded soldiers either succumbed afterward or basically limped through life. And you know, death wasn't always the worst fate back then. For archers, the real horror was surviving. You see, after the fighting, the foot archer got almost nothing. Pharaohs got the praise. But the bowmen, not so much. Conscripts, especially, were at the bottom of the heap. But even victorious soldiers didn't walk away clean. They counted enemy kills by severed hands, or genitals. Yes, really. That grisly trophy system turned close combat into a blood sport. And by the end of a campaign, the dead were dumped quickly. Common archers didn't earn chapels or elaborate burials. Their bodies went into unmarked or mass graves. So, in the end, ancient Egyptian archers were meat shields. Live or die, that was the call. And honestly, who would want that gig?